spent some time and looked at the overall music of this thing. And what I found actually is blowing my mind. Hey, what's up, and welcome back to A-Aron Reacts. We're back for another Ren, and many of you have suggested this as a part 4 to Money Game. Although many of you have also told me recently, hey, he just dropped another Money Game a day or two ago that is kind of Money Game part 4. So we will see. But this is Eden, and it definitely comes super highly recommended for you. And before we jump in, I just want to share one quick thing. I want to say thank you to those of you who have joined the membership over at A-Aron-Reacts.com. This is literally the first video I'm going to do that you're going to see ahead of everybody else. And I'm going to be doing another one, probably the one I talked about, Money Game 4 here. And we'll start building up that library. And if you want to be a part of that, then check out the link in the description here. I'll put the link up here to join as well. And definitely looking to create a community there, and it should be awesome. So let's get to it. This is Eden from Ren.
Let me tell you a story as old as time, the story of Adam and Eve. It starts with a God who wanted more.
Oh my, right out of the gate. Someone commented, when Ren says, let me tell you a story, put on your seatbelt, right? And that's definitely true. I've definitely seen that to be the case. There's no doubt about that. Anytime he begins, let me tell you a story, it's like, strap in, because it's going to be good, right? And I love this. It looks like the original Legend of Zelda type of layout from a video game. Yeah, that reminds me very much of the original Legend of Zelda, which is what I grew up in, playing video games. And then we hear kind of an almost demonic overtone of his voice right from the get-go. But yeah, let's get back to it.
Let me tell you a story as old as time, the story of Adam and Eve. It starts with a God who wanted more. God had just created the heavens and the earth. He had the angels by his side, but they had no will of their own. And so the autonomy to love or reject him was never theirs. All but for one. The once called bringer of light, Lucifer, morning star. Lucifer was the fairest and most intelligent of all the angels. He was the closest thing to God's image, and in his likeliness, Lucifer felt restless. He began to question and doubt God. He doubted the hierarchy opposed upon him. He felt God was arrogant. In his frustration, Lucifer built a throne that stood even above God's and declared mutiny.
Ooh. Okay, so guys, I know some of you probably see the clicks in the menu coming up when I pause it, and many of you have told me the keyboard shortcuts for pausing and playing videos, which I appreciate, and I would use them more, but I'm literally typing notes frantically as I do these because there's just so much going on here, right? And I'm switching back and forth as I play and pause, so it doesn't work so hot, but I really appreciate it nevertheless. So there's a couple things here that I took notes on. So one, I'm rewatching the show Lucifer actually as I do this, so it's really cool. I watched it originally, and my wife and I are back rewatching it. Fantastic show, kind of raunchy and so forth. Humorous, but it's very timely in terms of this video and Lucifer Morningstar and so forth. And it's interesting because he talks right at the beginning about choice. And that, God gave choice, and, and then also Lucifer and Morningstar kind of doubted the hierarchy. So immediately implanting these concepts of, in mutiny, right? We get right to mutiny. These concepts of not trusting the system and having this hierarchy. And so several of you have said this ties back to Money Game. And we talked about the hierarchy there. In fact, I think he had one of his lines was tied to the hierarchy. And then he went political with it. I think that was in part 2. Which someone else spun that proffered that part 1 was about the government, part 2 was about business, and part 2 was about the individual. So I hadn't heard that from any of your comments prior to that, and I hadn't thought of it myself, so I found that really interesting. So given that, I think the hierarchy piece was based on the government in part 1. So I think if that logic holds correct, it was part 1 where he talked about that. Let's get back to it. Oh, and by the way, musically. So I'm going to do my best to try to talk more musically because several of you have commented that. My last one, by the way, in Money Game Part 3, if you haven't checked it out, I dropped a pinned comment on there where I added more, which was a comment to somebody else that talked a little bit more about the musical structure. Here we're just seeing light piano lines kind of going as a backing track. a minor key. So it kind of gives it that little dark, sad type of tone. Not a lot much going else on musically here.
A war ensued. God, being all-powerful, came out the victor and banished Lucifer from the heavens and exiled him to earth.
Yeah.
Once again, God was alone with his power. Perhaps from loneliness, perhaps from curiosity, perhaps from a desire to share love, God began to work on his greatest project yet, a being that would mirror himself, the human, two humans specifically, Adam and Eve. They were placed inside a paradise built for them on earth, the Garden
I love the
of Eden.
graphics.
In the garden, God placed a tree that bared fruit that would grant anyone who ate it powers bestowed only to a God to tell good from evil, left from right.
My gosh, the usage of these voices and just playing that harmony, just, oh my gosh, it just gives it that deep bass. It just adds tension and power to it.
Anyone who ate it, powers bestowed only to a God to tell good from evil, left from right, to live righteously or to sin. He named this the Tree of Knowledge. God told Adam and Eve they could eat whatever they wanted in the garden, but never the fruit from the Tree of Knowledge. And if they disobeyed him, it would be punishable by death. The basic way the story of Eden is told is that Eve was tempted by Lucifer in the form of a serpent to eat a fruit from the Tree of Knowledge. Convinced, she bit the fruit, she passed it to Adam, and he did the same. Suddenly, ultimate knowledge filled their minds, and they realized they were naked and felt shame. God discovered this betrayal and felt angry.
Oh my gosh. All right. There is just so much to unpack with what just happened. First of all, musically, but let's talk otherwise. I want to go back. I need to hear it again because I didn't actually get all the notes of things that I was thinking, and I want to hear it again.
Is that Eve was tempted by Lucifer in the form of a serpent to eat a fruit from the tree.
Okay, yeah, so that was one of the first things, and I'm going to talk musically separately in a minute, but the whispers, right? The temptations. You see the snake, kind of this imagery, and, that's the old tale, is that temptation, right?
Tree of Knowledge. Convinced, she bit the fruit, she passed it to Adam, and he did the same. Suddenly, ultimate knowledge filled their minds, and they realized they were naked and felt shame.
Yeah, and so ultimate knowledge filled their brains, but then they felt naked and was shamed. So it's such a dichotomy, right? Like their knowledge is full. Their brain is full with knowledge, but at the same time they feel naked and they feel the shame. So it's this mix, it's the sin, right? It's the challenge, it's that dichotomy, it's that dilemma. Okay, I want to break down for a moment what is happening musically here with this. And so I'm going to switch over to my keyboard because I need a slightly different setup to be able to record my keyboard. Okay, I'm over at my keyboard now, and what he does here musically is brilliant. We heard some of this back in high Ren. We called the tritone, the devil's interval, right? But he does it here in a super clever way, right? And so what we hear is this line.
Told is that Eve was tempted by Lucifer in the form of a serpent to eat a fruit from the Tree of Knowledge. Convinced, she bit the fruit, she passed it to Adam, and he did the same. Suddenly, ultimate...
And so the tritone is actually very unpleasant to the ear. It kind of splits the octave musically, but he doesn't just play those intervals. Instead of just playing, right, that interval right there, along with... Right? These are those tritones. They don't sound so good together. Right? But he mixes it with. So he does two in a row to make it sound almost like a perfect fifth, which is very pleasant to the ear. He mixes those tritones. That right here, it goes. Brilliant. Okay, I'm back, so let's go ahead and continue here.
They realized they were naked and felt shame. God discovered this betrayal and felt angry. He exiled Adam and Eve and cursed them with the life of a mortal. They would work, they would bear children, and they would die. The fate of a human. Now look deeper.
In the story, the serpent tempted me by telling me I would gain ultimate knowledge and that God would spare me.
Both were true.
This wasn't some great deception, meaning that Satan, in the likeliness of God, perhaps understood his intentions. In fact, the serpent tempted me by telling me I would gain ultimate knowledge and that God would spare me.
Both were true.
This wasn't some great deception, meaning that Satan, in the likeliness of God, perhaps understood his intentions. In fact,
The only lie uttered in the
Garden of Eden was
by God, who did not end up
condemning
Adam and Eve to
death.
This could be seen as an act of
Mercy, but the sheer fact that the tree existed and that humans
were initially cut off from this knowledge.
may imply some part of God was afraid that if humans were granted the gift of perception, they, like Lucifer, would have the power to reject him too. The fact that there stood a beautiful tree that could
grant this knowledge in the first place
implies that a small part of
God, supposedly all-knowing,
perhaps wanted and intended
the humans to
bite too.
In the Bible, Satan was an exile.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So this is play of free will, and there's so many themes going on here. Oh my gosh. And greed as well. Right. These sins. And so now he's saying that, you know what? Satan didn't lie. It was God who lied, that said that he would be banished or he would be punished to death, but he was a liar. That's interesting. I will say that, he cursed him with the life of a mortal, I think was the line. And I did write that down. And so maybe in some way that was worse, right? So is there something metaphorical going on there? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Right? Is there a world where maybe God wasn't a liar? Maybe there's another kind of death. I don't know. I don't think I'm fully getting my heads around what's going on there. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe it is true that in the Bible it was God that I don't know the Bible well enough at all, actually. So I'll leave it at that.
perhaps wanted and intended
the humans to
Bite too.
In the Bible, Satan was an exiled angel of free will. Humans.
So that whole line of maybe God intended for them to bite, like it's the temptation's there, but God obviously wanted free will, and so I think that concept of giving him that temptation, I feel like maybe it was some sort of a test. Now, ultimately, I don't think he would have believed that they would have done it. I think he believed in people and humanity, and that ultimately they would choose right. But yeah, I could be wrong here.
Are exiled
descendants of Adam and Eve.
also with free will.
Free will,
Not only
yeah.
We shared a similar fate to the devil. We were also both constructed in
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. But we share the similar fate of the devil. Wow, that is power. Being mortal, right?
Adam and Eve.
also with free will. Not only have we shared a similar fate to the devil, we were also both constructed in
We
the
were
image of
also
our
both
Creator,
constructed in the image of our Creator.
meaning our behaviors, in some shape or form,
The imagery.
echo his.
We could assume that this kind of
God has his doubts,
But-
but as the most
powerful
Being in the universe.
he has no one
Wow, the usage of the skip track on the doubts, kind of alliterating the doubt itself, the hesitation. And all these, the morphing of the flower into the, automatic weapon.
Constructed
I mean,
in
just
the image of our Creator.
Meaning our behaviors, in some
Semi-automatic.
shape or form, imperfectly echo his.
we could assume that this kind of
God has his doubts,
But-
but as the most
right there.
Being in the universe.
he has no one above him
To turn to with questions. And no one to
Doubt but himself. An incredibly lonely and isolating existence.
Whoa.
We must only assume that the common thread between God, Lucifer, and us is the desire for more, an eternal curiosity, a desire perhaps birthed from a seed of loneliness. If not, why would we exist in the first place?
Okay, so musically, there's all this eeriness going on. We hear the like the high pitched thing, and then it's mostly bass. There's not really a lot of chords and so forth going on, but it's just creating this eerie sound. My gosh, what is happening here with all of these imagery and the morphing and the tones? It's like it's a mashup. And I think he's trying to demonstrate that all these voices come together, and without them, it's kind of that gestalt again. The sum is greater than the individual parts, but they need to come together and they're interwoven. The complexity is demonstrated here with the
We
imagery.
assume that the common thread between God, Lucifer, and us is the desire for more, an eternal curiosity, a desire perhaps birthed from a seed of loneliness. If not, why would we exist in the first place?
Whoa.
The constantly looping bittersweet irony is whether gifted by some omnipotent God or simply a byproduct of billions of years of evolution. Here we
And then he continues to, sorry, I interrupted at a bad spot, but I don't want to lose this. He continues to use this like 16-bit fonts and graphics and then video game sounds here. And you know, now I can start to see why you're saying this is a continuation of Money Game, because it's almost like he's metaphorically demonstrating through the imagery and the choices he makes with this production that it's all a game, right? It's like a game. We're in the game.
The constantly looping bittersweet irony is whether gifted by some omnipotent God or simply a byproduct of billions of years of evolution. Here we stand in 2023 as creatures with free will, the only creatures that understand and define good from bad, creatures with the potential of a God. And what do we do with that free will, my friends? We willingly walk to the edge of a cliff. In the name of progress, we jump off the precipice. The empires we build ravage the
Wow.
earth.
Oh my gosh.
The
Dude,
natural-
yes. That transition was epic. Right? We've just got the screen with the letters and just boom, they switch into this full-on imagery with the military and the moving, the bass. Oh my gosh. And just the fact that we're willing to walk to the edge and leap in effort of progress. This goes back to some of the Money Game with sacrifice, right? The Rage Against Machine, lighting himself on fire, Ren imagery doing that. In the name of progress, in the name of protest in those cases, but in the name of progress. And then right into this moving beat to demonstrate that movement, that motion, the energy, right into it. It is brilliance again.
With that free will, my friends, we willingly
Load. Oh, I
walk
missed the
to edge
loading.
of a cliff.
I missed the loading there. That is so cool. Say, hold on, I have to think a minute. Oh, that is cool. I want to see what that also means for the actual words.
Years of evolution. Here we stand in 2023 as creatures with free will, the only creatures that understand and define good from bad, creatures with the potential of a God. And what do we do with that free will, my friends? We willingly walk to the edge of a cliff.
Awesome. So it's like they're loading up the images that are about to come. We're ready to play. Press play. Oh, just...
In the name of progress, we jump off the precipice. The empires we build ravage the earth.
Wow.
The natural order of things are necessary to survive. Any systems which do not honor homeostasis eventually perish. Our free will overrides our own biological instinct. We can take more than we eat. We can...
So again, he uses this homeostasis, but now he's relating it back to us and our systems. And this is that kind of status quo in order to operate the things that we need. And this is kind of typically used from nature and animals and so forth. But now he's applying to us and, challenging that, we often live beyond our means. We take for granted that greed, so on and so forth.
kill more than we need. We can willingly create weapons with the potential to burn everything we've built to the ground. We willingly decide to...
And that music in the background, just, it's adding so much, just these little hits and just the tension.
Weapons with the potential potential to burn everything we've built to the ground. We willingly decide to bow at the altar of greed, the most insidious and destructive of all sins.
There we go. Okay, so we decide to bow at the altar of greed, the most insidious of all sins. So here again, he's now, I think this is essentially the segue to money game. Right? And here we're printing money, is that? It's hard to tell, but...
We put our faith in corporations who pose as rulers. We willingly allow ourselves to be led by outdated power systems.
And again, now we get reference to part 1 of Money Game. So does that mean he's going to get into part 2 now?
Ran by corrupted politicians and bloated dictators who claim domain and dominion over an open and free land. We willingly elect the corrupted when the decision was always ours to build something.
Actually, no, sorry, I'm thinking it through further. He had prefaced part 1 with part 2. He talked about the printing press and corporations and so forth. So yeah, I think we've already kind of got a hint at both of those.
We willingly create and impose separation because of beliefs that we are force-fed through our phones and television sets. We always had the will to reject these. Always asked to build something better. We willingly create and impose separation because of beliefs that we are force-fed through our phones and television sets.
I'm trying to remember what show or movie that is. Oh, Mr. Robot, I think, right? Is that what that's from? I might be blanking.
Impose separation because of beliefs that we are force-fed through our phones and television.
Is that Mr. Robot? Why am I blanking? That's what's coming to mind. I could be completely mixing shows or movies.
Television sets. We always had the will to reject these things, but we adhere to them as though they were the laws of physics. War, famine, pestilence, greed, these aren't things imposed upon us by an all-powerful God or by his demonic adversary. They are here because of us, not because of free will, but because of our inability to use it.
Wow, so you have the choice. You just don't exercise it. And that's ultimately what leads to these sins, is that you've got the ability to exercise free will, but you're not choosing, or in his mind, perhaps you're not choosing correctly. That is deep. And by the way, I will say now that I'm not always taking notes. And so I'm actually finding in some cases here now, it won't be true always, but right now I'm actually using the spacebar to pause and play. So, thank you for that little tip. It is helping some. I think it probably won't help as much as maybe others because I do take a ton of notes, but it is helping some. So I appreciate that.
We must be motivated to be better, not out of fear of punishment of an eternal damnation, but because the choice exists, because we love ourselves. Because we have the power to absolve ourselves of so much unnecessary suffering. Take a second to be in this very moment.
All right, I think that's a good spot to pause.
How much suffering is happening all over the planet right now?
See, there where I was taking notes and I hit the space bar, but it didn't work. But he said, but because the choice exists, that is just so powerful.
Demonic adversary. They are here because of us. Not because of free will, but because of our inability to use it. We must be motivated to be better, not out of fear of punishment of an eternal damnation, but because the choice exists.
We must choose to be better, not out of fear of eternal damnation, but because the choice exists. Now, I'm not sure I quoted that exactly, but that is so powerful. We have the choice. Why don't we use it? We have to be better.
Because we love ourselves. Because we have the power to absolve ourselves of so much unnecessary suffering. Take a second to be in this very moment. In this moment, how much suffering is happening all over the planet right now?
Okay, I'm sorry. Just again, I don't want to miss the references, but he's going back to gratitude. And I talked a lot about gratitude in, the million subscribers video. But here he's showing kind of global famine, poor people that are far worse off than probably every one of us watching this video, more than likely, and certainly most, and be in the moment, right? Be grateful for what you have.
This moment, how much suffering is happening all over the planet right now? How many people are dying of illnesses that could have easily been cured?
And there's
but
that voice
aren't
again.
Because of the selfishness and greediness of humanity. How many people break their backs and reject their own passions to simply afford bills and food? How many of us crave distraction from existence? How many of us numb that pain in whatever way necessary? How many children are being abused? How many people sleep cold and hungry on the streets? How many of us become cogs inside a machine that is...
So again, we hear, I think it's the same keyboard line. Yeah, it's a continuation mostly from the earlier melody in the piano.
Destroying itself. How many soldiers have been forced to fight in meaningless wars? How many humans have killed for ideals they don't believe in or understand?
Whoa.
How many people have died for the greed of another man? And how much of this was avoidable? As written in the Bible, Satan was not condemned to hell. Satan was condemned to earth. He lives there amongst other creatures with free will, who always had the choice and still chose their own undoing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our self-made hell. The bittersweet irony is this is a creation of our own design. I'll leave you with this. Consider what you have done here today. You have worked together as individuals collaborating to form a giant neural network, a hive mind capable of achieving incredible things. We have lent on each other's strengths to solve puzzles and decipher riddles.
Okay, so consider what you've done. You've all come together like a giant neural network. So you've told me that this was at the end of some game, like a treasure hunt, I think it was. And he gave clues and so forth, and this video was the end of it. And I think that's what he's alluding to here. You all come together, and you've created this neural network. Neural network meaning millions of independent cells working together and so forth. It's also a computer science term, but we won't get into that. But anyway, then we see that pig again, which you've told me makes an appearance. I don't know if in every video or most videos, but I'm not sure what the meaning or significance of that is. So maybe you can help me.
We have lent on each other's strengths to solve puzzles and decipher riddles. And we've done so to win money. Imagine applying that same spirit and determination to creating the closest thing we have to paradise here on Earth. By using the power of collaboration, we can work together to even the playing field for everybody. Our dystopia...
So I will be getting to some of his other band and performing live and stuff to that effect, by the way.
Can become utopias. Our Jahannams can become Jannah. Our hells can become heaven, right here on Earth. And this sentiment applies to atheists, agnostics, and believers alike. Myself, I'm an agnostic who believes. I believe in us.
Wow.
We must do better because we can choose to. We must be better simply because the option exists.
Yeah, it's just so much power there, right? We can do better. We must be better because we choose to. We must be better simply because the option exists. So much power.
Thank you.
Oh, I paused just before the thank you. Yeah, what is that pig? Wow, gosh, he is such an encourager, a lifter upper, a motivationist, right? I mean, really, Ren is a teacher, a prophet, a philosopher, an architect, an artist, a musician, a rapper, an amazing human being, and most importantly, a unifier and a catalyst, right? He's rallying people, though. But I say troops because it's kind of this concept of following his lead to go change the world, to, as he said, fight the forces of evil. And he continues to say we can all do better. Work together as individuals. The hive mind, we can solve, you solve puzzles and so forth. And then he also poked fun at the fact that God was alone after, condemning Lucifer, to damnation on earth. So those, I mean, I think the idea being those in power can often rise to the bottom when those on the bottom that get damned can unite and create something together. So I do see some ties to Money Game here when he talks about the sins and he talks about greed being the most. And, he shows a couple imagery of things that I think tie back to Money Game and, kind of the concept of the government and so forth. But I don't feel the close connection with Money Game other than, kind of the linear placement of this at the end of that journey that he did after Money Game. So I get some ties to it, but I think maybe that's why some of you are saying that his most recent video is Money Game 4. I guess for me, the verdict's still out. Obviously, there does seem to be some debate, or maybe, I don't know, maybe Ren said that this is Money Game 4 or should be. So if that's the case, let's look at that lens, through that lens for a moment. Just say, ignore whether it is or not, and just say this is hypothetically Money Game 4. Well, in that case, I think he's trying to expand the mindset of, Money Game exists and it is powerful and it's the most powerful. But here's kind of the lineage of where that stems from, and that it ties into the power of free will and choice. And then we have the choice to not have that greed, the most deadly of all the sins, and that ultimately, or evil of all the sins. All right, so now I want to take a step back and look at this musically. So I'm going to switch over to my keyboard for that because, again, I need a little bit of a different setup. So let me do that. Okay, I just took a look. I spent some time and looked at the overall music of this thing. And what I found actually is blowing my mind, right? So a lot of this is in, minor keys. But what he's done is he's using diatonic chords, which means he's sticking to the same major. And I know for those of you who aren't musically inclined, I'm completely losing you, but hear me out. This is absolute genius. What it is ultimately is you hear a lot of this melody in the beginning of, and he does that throughout. He just plays with it. He could do all kinds of stuff, and ultimately what he's doing throughout, with the exception of, I think it might even be the only place where he doesn't do what I'm about to say, was when I showed you earlier the whole piece with the tritones, is throughout the whole thing, he's using the white keys on the piano. So this is the difference of white, black, right? You got the white keys and the piano and then the black keys, and there's this good, evil, overarching theme that's going on here. And so I'm gonna switch cameras back so I can talk more to you directly. Okay, I'm back. So yeah, I mean, the fact that this is tied to the white keys on the keyboard, and this good versus evil, and God, and the good triumphs, and I think that the white key is tied to like purity and all of the things tied to that, cleanliness. It's also kind of the most natural key for Western music often. I mean, also E, also because a lot of the strings are tuned to it, but that bass of all the white keys on the keyboard, especially in this case where he switches it up a little bit to minor to give you that feel, but he's literally dancing around that whole thing, is more natural. So I think he's trying to show that serenity, that balance there, and just playing off of that. But to me, I think that's really special that almost this entire song is played on the white keys of the keyboard. That is just fascinating when he talks about this God, good versus evil, Lucifer, and so forth battle, right from wrong, the power of choice and free will, and choose good. Let's unite together. Let's come together and let's change the world. And really, that's the message to me. And I think it's a great place to leave this off. And so if you haven't yet subscribed to me, what are you doing? Just do it right now. Literally just subscribe. And also, if you're a renegade, right, consider joining my membership. I'm not going to be pressing hard on it, but we'll let you know about it, and I'm going to give you some perks in it. And there's a link here where you can go check out those perks in the video there. So either way, we'll see you in the next one. Thank you much.